Okay. Oh yeah, we got.
There you go.
All right, hello folks from the trailer park. I do appreciate y'all giving us this opportunity. We know, of course, Sheriff Greg Hamilton, Wayne Vincent, Austin Police Association President, and of course, Chief, of course. Art Acevedo, we all know him. And we appreciate y'all giving us this time.
Hi, I'm Dr. Laura Pressley, and I'm a business owner here in Austin. And my question is going to be for Sheriff Hamilton. And we know that there's a lot of people frustrated with the TSA at the airport. And with frisking of citizens, and now the most recently, the TSA has been found, at least in Houston, found to be swabbing drinks and inspecting your drinks after you've passed the security zone. I'm a sexual assault survivor, and I cannot stand it when the TSA gropes me. They put their hands between my breast, they touch my genitals, and put their hands between my legs. And Sheriff Hamilton, I hate this. And there's a lot of sexual assault survivors here in Travis County who hate this behavior. So my question is more related to you, Sheriff, and also Mr. Vincent and Chief Acevedo. You three took an oath to uphold the Constitution of the United States before you took office. I want to read you the Fourth Amendment of the Constitution. The right of the people to be secure in their persons, houses, papers, and effects against unreasonable searches and seizures shall not be violated. The TSA is violating the Fourth Amendment. Sheriff Hamilton, what can you do about this, and what will you commit to doing?
Well, again, those are the TSA's rules, and there's nothing that me as a sheriff can go in there and dictate what actions these individuals, how their policies and procedures. I believe that there needs to be a conversation with the higher ups to address those particular issues. Number one is simple. You could start off by talking with the congressman, and from there, moving forth and talking with more and getting this conversation on the table. I've heard this argument all the time. I think it's totally inappropriate for an individual to touch your breasts or your genitals area. I think that's inappropriate, and I think it needs to be addressed with TSA.
And I might add, it's not only inappropriate, it's against the Constitution. It's against the law. And you as sheriff are the absolute authority on the law here in Travis County.
I think what you said, if I could, can you nullify that's federal stuff, right?
Yes, he can. You
As
can.
county
You
sheriff, can you nullify a federal law?
I
He
won't.
says no.
Well, there's also the 10th Amendment.
Right.
So, anyway, thank
Now I'm
you.
going back to my governor, huh?
Thank
Yeah.
you, but I want to impress on all three of you. You took an oath to uphold the Constitution, and you're not doing it. Your departments are not upholding the Constitution. I want to be real clear about
I'd have
that.
to take exception with that, because the Constitution isn't based on your personal interpretation or tags interpretation. We're a nation of laws, and for our nation to work, it may not be perfect. It's absolutely flawed. But for you to say that we don't abide by the Constitution, the United States Supreme Court is the court of the land. And unless they tell me to do something that is completely out in left field, that's the law we follow. If they say tomorrow that TSA can't make those searches, and the TSA decides we don't care what the Supreme Court says, I'm willing to bet that the sheriff, I know that my position would change, because now we have the court, the highest court in the land, saying TSA, that is absolutely a violation of the Fourth Amendment. It's a violation of the 10th Amendment, and I think that at that point we have the authority. Absent that decision, we have to abide by. It's kind of like the blood draw that I think a lot of folks don't like. Well, the day that the United States Supreme Court tells me we cannot do non-consensual testing, that same minute we're stopping, because that's the rules that we play under, and that's this country that we have and the way it works. So
One more
I would
point.
never
You have to
I
let
would
me-
never knowingly tolerate my people not following the Constitution. And you know what? And I'm a police officer. They know I'm a police officer. I'm coming back. This is a funny story. I'm traveling armed, okay? I am carrying a weapon on my person. And because it was a one-way trip, the S came up, SSS. You know what that means, secondary search. And they're searching the heck out of me, and I'm thinking to myself, and I asked them, I said, well, I'm coming on board with a gun. Does it make any sense to you that you need to be basically doing what you just described? So I do understand where you're coming from, but at the end of the day, we have to follow the laws of the nation. And as it comes to the constitutionality of law, it's really up to the Supreme Court to make that decision.
But the
Thank you.
one comment,
Quickly.
Mr. Ritter. The Supreme Court has ruled that without probable cause, you, Chief Acevedo, and your people cannot do what the TSA is doing. Because they are another organization doesn't mean that they're not subject to the laws.
But then I think that what has to happen is somebody needs to take TSA and sue them for that, and then keep kicking it up until the Supreme Court makes the final decision. I'm not aware of any rulings from any court rendering or making the judgment that it's unconstitutional. That's why we're kind of stuck. People don't realize that airports are really federal, and air transportation really falls under federal law, where we have very limited jurisdiction. For example, last week we had, I don't even remember the name of the band, some guy interfered with on an aircraft, interfered with a flight crew. Well, we can't charge them with the interference with the flight crew. That's actually federal law because it's involving aviation.
Yeah, but the Constitution
Okay.
doesn't say that we can exclude things. That's not what this says. And you guys took an oath, and you're not upholding it, period. Thank you.
Thank you, Val.
Throughout the history
Anybody else? Get along.
of our community, there's always been this issue of police relations with the communities. Vincent, I know that you and Nelson Linder took an effort or are making a lead in trying to repair that. Could you give us some feedback on that? How's that going? Is it working? Is it being effective? Or
Yes, a little bit at a time. There's been
Okay.
kind of a come together on having some serious discussions that we haven't had for years. And, you know, every once in a while there's a high-profile incident where one of our officers has used deadly force, and it's a tragedy to the community, the family, and the officer. What we have said is we're trying everything we can from the police officer standpoint. The chief, through training and technology and policy, does everything that he can to try to eliminate those instances. But the bottom line is that there's a common denominator in all of these instances, and that's where someone decided to be combative and not cooperate or not comply with the police officer's instructions, whether the police officer in their mind was right or wrong. And those things, although they, when these happen, 99% of the time, no one gets hurt. It has deadly consequences sometimes when you choose to fight, assault the police, run from the police, and those kind of things. So we're reaching out to the community, also telling them if you believe the officer is wrong, is usurping their authority, there are all kinds of avenues in which you can address that problem with a police officer. Just don't fight them on the street so we can avoid these tragedies. And that message is being embraced by the community. And our officers are embracing the message that they understand that they're held accountable. They've embraced the fact that they film just about everything that they do. So there has been a coming together.
Okay. Well, film everything they do. Go ahead. Your name?
My name is Lynn Foster, and I'm a member of the Peaceful Streets Project. And we record police activity even on the Trailer Park Show.
Well, thank you.
We
I
do
like
that-
being on your tape.
Good. We do that to protect our citizens. Used to be that the police had the motto to protect and serve, and they don't do that anymore. They have no obligation to protect and serve you, and so that's why we do it for ourselves, to the extent that we can do it. I've read that you're 8 times more likely to die from law enforcement than a terrorist. And unfortunately, we've seen since 9/11 a lot of militarization and federalization of police forces. That's very unfortunate. My question is, why can't we have a program that will systematically remove bad cops from the force?
Well, I think if you ask the union president.
Thank you for the question.
That's his question.
Will that be all?
What, sir? Well, I think if you ask the union president, he'll tell you that you have a program. That's called the Police Administration. That the recent article in the Statesman brought up that in the last 10 years, this administration has fired the majority of the officers. A lot of folks don't realize it. And on top of that, a lot of officers quit. They see the handwriting on the wall, so they quit. And what it really brought out that I thought was huge for me, that gave me a great sense of pride, is that external complaints from the community has gone down in the last 5 years, but internal complaints have gone up. And to me, that builds a picture in my mind of we're doing something right. Officers realize that holding each other accountable, and he'll tell you that we will, and we'll argue about it a little bit. I expect my supervisors to supervise. I expect my officers, when they see something that is clearly wrong, that they need to report it. It's required by policy, and when they fall short, we hold them accountable. So if you look at the data and you look at the stats, you will see that we're a department that holds our people to very high standards. When we think they're right, some of these uses of force where folks don't think that they're deadly uses of force, we're going to base our decisions on the law and on the evidence, and not on which way the wind's blowing. But I think that we're heading in absolutely the right direction. And quite frankly, if you think we're a bad department, I'd like to take you on a field trip, because when we come back, I promise you, you will be very happy to be policed by the Austin Police Department.
Where could we get the data that you're talking about?
We can get it for you. Just I'll get you an email and tell me what you need. We'll get you all the information.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome.
As the chief says, we sometimes have conflict about it. There's a lot of discipline in the department. And so for someone to say, how can we get rid of bad cops? What I'm questioning is, what's your definition of a bad cop? Is that someone that arrested somebody and you don't believe they should have been arrested? I will tell you, any bad cops that we have in the Austin Police Department, as soon as this chief finds out about it, they're gone. There's a history of that. There's been 13% of our workforce has been disciplined in the last 5 years. If you don't think this chief is vigilant in any kind of misconduct, you haven't seen the numbers.
I want to see him.
My name is Heather Fazio with Texans for Accountable Government. One of my concerns, and the concerns of Texans for Accountable Government, is the militarization and centralization of power when it comes to law enforcement. We see it with the fusion centers. We see it with Urban Shield, which is a full-scale military exercise that both the city of Austin and Travis County are going to be participating in.
Is that right, Sheriff?
No.
The federal government is known for trampling our rights, and I think that it is incumbent upon our local leaders to stand up for us when they are calling bad shots. So my question to you is, in the case of a disaster or a terrorist act, who is calling the shots, DHS or your consciences?
No, I mean, if we have jurisdiction, whatever it is, we're going to retain jurisdiction, and we're going to investigate whatever the incident is. Urban Shield, I don't think there's any. I don't know what you're talking about in terms of militarization. I don't think that there's any military involved. That's going to be EMS, fire, different agencies. But I don't believe, and I'll double check, Heather, to make sure so I don't look like a fool. But I don't recall any participation by any federal entity. Now, back in the state of California, I can tell you, having been in the state police, we had something similar to Urban Shield. It was a statewide exercise, and the role that was played by the feds was that we wanted to test to see how long would it take to put police cars. As a state agency, you have to respond to mutual aid. How long would it take to put a company of officers, specially trained officers for whatever the mission may be, into a C5 or C-130 to move the officers and the equipment statewide? So we actually used them, but I don't believe that they're part of this. But I'll double check, and especially if you remind me on an email, and I'll let you know whether or not.
Sure. Part of the
I
authorization
don't-
from the city of Austin was it's called a full-scale military exercise. And when Urban Shield has been executed around the country, not only our military but foreign military has also participated. Which leads to my second question: is are you okay with training our local peace officers with military, not only from this country but also from others?
I've been in law enforcement 26 plus years. I have never trained or witnessed a foreign military service train with the people I've been around, and I don't know in the 5 years I've been here where we've ever trained with foreign military. Now we have a partnership with the 3rd Cav out of Fort Hood, where they're doing a lot of police work, really. I mean, if you think about what's happening in Iraq and Afghanistan, they're doing a lot of,
World policing, right?
well, I'll leave you to define it, but they're doing a lot of things that traditionally have been a law enforcement role. And what we tried to do was teach them how to investigate crimes. We trained them. It was the other way around, so they could be successful, not get themselves hurt, and most importantly, so they could do things right and not be like an army, if that's what their mission was. So I'll check on that, and I'll get back to you. Especially, please send me an email if you remember. If I don't get back to you by the end of the week, send me an email.
And I'm not familiar with the military being a part of this, but I do believe that there's going to be federal agencies that will be a part of the
Yeah.
urban shield. And the only time that I can think of Travis County even involved with the military is when there's competition, like a SWAT competition, but not as far as training is concerned.
But I like to say we also work really closely with TAG to try to allay some of the concerns. And Councilmember Morrison, I remember the day that we were passing that. You know, we can agree to disagree on a lot of issues, but I would challenge people, like I challenge my cops, to say that my heart's not in the right place. I challenge people that really know me, and I think Heather knows me pretty well. My heart's in the right place. We may not agree how to get there, but I think at the end of the day, we have the same goal: a safe city, a police department that's respectful of people's rights, and that we do, in fact, obey and respect the Constitution.
We got 30 seconds, so we just have to say goodnight. We'll be back. I do appreciate y'all coming on. I know what Wayne Vincent had plenty to say to us before. We was out at another forum we had. And the sheriff, of course, is always welcome on, and good luck on the coming up election. I don't think you'll have any problems.
Well, you've always had a good saying, Chief. We're here to please you and work with you. Don't get in trouble, and you won't find
There you go, yeah.
That's right. I mean, you remember.
All right, later on, folks. Good night.
Thank you.
Well.